Hello, everyone, and welcome to another horrific review. I'm joined again by Matt as we discuss Silent Hill, directed by Christophe Gans. Rosa de Silva takes her adopted daughter Sharon to the town of Silent Hill in an attempt to cure her of her ailment. After a violent car crash, Sharon disappears and Rose begins a horrific journey to get her back. This movie was made at a budget of $50 million and brought in $100.6 million at the box office. Matt, welcome back. Good to see you again, mate.
Oh yeah, you okay?
Yeah. We went into full nerd mode, so we mightn't have any energy there for the stream because we're just talking about everything gaming. It's game adaptations. I think this was back when they weren't really a thing. I know they're massive now. I think they're going to take over the superheroes thing, but I hope it doesn't go the same path where they get ruined. I know it's very hit and miss with game adaptations, but yeah, Silent Hill, it's another massive property and it's another story-based one, which brought this, obviously Resident Evil was the sort of first to break this, breaking this mold, but Silent Hill definitely is right up there. Completely its own tone and style. It didn't try to mimic or copy. It was telling its own story.
Yeah, definitely. I think, Resident Evil, obviously based on the games, Konami obviously wanted to have a survival horror game to sort of compete with Resident Evil. And I think obviously, but they're completely different stories, completely different locations, environments, sort of characters. Like out of the two, Silent Hill is my favorite, and it has been for many years.
Mm-hmm. The director, Christophe Gans, he was passionate about making this movie, and he wrote Konami multiple times. And in the end, sorry, we're showing our age, folks, because this was a big thing back in the day, internet kids. But he was that determined to make it that he actually made a video play and sent the video to Konami headquarters with is basically his pitch.
Yeah,
and doing that back in the day, 2000 was a big thing.
back in the day.
That wasn't a small undertaking, believe it or not.
No. When you say back in the day in the year 2000, I'm like,
it's just scary, isn't it?
It's just
25 years ago.
Yeah, so I think obviously the director was passionate about the games. It was sort of like when Silent Hill first came out, it didn't make a big splash like Resident Evil, but it did make an impact. And I think, trying to convey that story on film is very difficult. So maybe Konami had some sort of reservation there. I'm not too sure about that sort of thing. But from the interviews and everything I've seen, he is very passionate about the property, and he's a fan. That's the big thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and I have been beating on about this, beating this drum for a while, that you have to be a fan of the property. It's like these tourists, the horror writers, I'll just write horror till I make it big, or I'll just make a horror movie till I make it big, and they don't care. It's just the means to an end, and it really shows in what they produce. And there's something about the passion of a fandom. Paul S. Anderson, he was a fan. When he started the Resident Evil journey, and it showed on the property. This Christophe Gans, he's a fan, and it shows that, like I said, Silent Hill's a completely different game. It's atmospheric, it's slow burner, so it's not going to translate into an action movie.
Yeah, so it's more of a like you say, it's a slow burn, isn't it? It's sort of more show and don't tell sort of vibe, whereas Resident Evil has got that clear mission, clear sort of story, what you're trying to do. Obviously there's twists and turns on the way, but I find obviously Silent Hill sort of taps into the more psychological side of everything. So it's like, oh, did I see that? Did it happen? We're not too sure.
Yeah, and it's almost the unreliable narrator aspect of it. If as your reality's getting warped in front of you, Definitely. Are you seeing what you see? Is it your psychosis? And they did it very cleverly, this, because it started off with a car crash, before the main part. Well, there's Dylan. Great to have you. Glad you're here waiting for us. We're nearly there because we're just getting into it before this being started. But yeah, we'll start off with the car crash. So straight away, there's connotations there.
Yeah.
Is she in a coma? Has she been knocked unconscious? Is she alive? Blah 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 blah. You're left
Mm.
with all those questions as you're going through this, and I like that. I like the fact that you're unraveling a mystery, so you're not just told everything.
No, and I think sometimes it's nice to sort of let the viewer make their own mind up about things, not to the point of frustration, but subtly, did that happen? But not sort of not keep backtracking on it, just sort of leave it as it is, and like the audience can sort of make up their own mind. But yeah, that the car crash scene is used quite a lot in Silent Hill as in the games as well. In the first game especially, there was a car crash, and later on down the line there was more sort of car crashes to start, so it gives that unreliable sort of protagonist then.
Yep. Now we're coming at this at two different angles, aren't we? Because we're obviously talking about this before we went. I obviously am taking the film face value, storytelling, how it flowed, and you're coming at it from how this compares the movie to the game and the story. Which I mean, we'll bounce back and forth, but this is a good way to unpick something. When you come at things from different angles, then we'll get different experiences.
Definitely.
So before the movie came out, how much of an expectation did you have of what this was going to be like? I'll not lie, I didn't have a lot of expectation. I didn't really know what to think. I played Silent Hill, but it wasn't like in my mind as much or as maybe Resident Evil might have been.
Yeah, I was 14 when this film came out. And I remember I played up to that point. I played all the games, already become a fan of the game. So when they announced that a film was coming out, I loved it before the film came out because I was so invested in the games already. And I love the film, and I've watched it loads and loads of times. Obviously watched it again, prepare for the chat, but previous to that, I only watched it about a month ago. It's one of my sort of comfort movies. So I didn't sort of have high expectations or low expectations. I just was so excited for more Silent Hill, and I'm glad that it turned out to be something that I liked. So,
yep, I think it was a different, like early 2000s leading up then. There's a different mindset about adaptations. There was an excitement. We believe that the people making these things actually enjoyed the properties themselves and wanted the entertainers. Like, look at today. Once somebody says adaptation, making a movie off, we all cringe internally because it's like, how they're going to destroy this, how they're going to ruin this. Like, there's just instant negativity. But back then, I'm a completely different mindset, and I don't think it's an age thing. Because there's young people now, like, are seeing properties and they're like, oh my God, no, and oh, here's another old person's property getting remade, so it's actually causing disdain among all audiences, not just the people that grew up with the properties. They're sick of remakes or adaptations because they're done so badly.
I think the main sort of adaptations I can remember, like sort of in my early life, was obviously Silent Hill, Resident Evil, and Lara Croft. Obviously,
the Angelina Jolie movies.
Yeah, that's the ones.
Oh God, the thing that got me with that, I was like sort of until Chris Barry appeared in the first one.
Yeah,
as the butler. I'm like, what? Oh, it's bloody. It's the British. What was his first name? The British Empire. Arnold Rimmer, obviously out of Red Dwarf.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh bloody hell, it's Chris Barry. Oh, that's my mind just changed immediately. Like, oh, this is going to be fun.
Yeah, but I can't really like now. It's sort of like it does seem maybe a bit diluted, the space where something is adapted from something. I don't know. I'm sort of. It's like with anything. I sort of take it for what it is. Same with Silent Hill, like the film Silent Hill. Obviously, hardcore fans know that the film took some liberties with the games, but I think if you take it for what it is, like, and just enjoy it, it's like a completely different thing, isn't it? It's it can't be sort of canonized into the games. It's a separate entity altogether, isn't it? So
Which they did with Resident Evil with the Alice storyline. That's a completely separate storyline.
yeah,
And I was appreciated for that. They weren't trying to overwrite where now, I'll use the Alien franchise as an example. They're they're actually going back and overwriting, even with Alien Isolation. They're still talking about making the Alien Isolation 2.
yeah,
The one that came out there, I forget the name, the VR one. Like
um,
they're mixing into the storyline of the game so much that you're like, what the hell's going on here? Why doesn't everybody know about the xenomorph? Because it's all happening in the same 5 bloody planets, and everybody's involved in it. And you're like,
yeah.
it's getting ridiculous now.
I know there is a lot of alien things out there. I'm still trying to I still haven't watched the newest one. Romulus, is it? I think.
It's frustrating as hell.
Is that?
Yeah.
I've still got to watch that. But
No, but well, let's not go about that because I'll start swearing about Ridley Scott again. That'll be an hour of a stream, me just going, fucking hate you. But yeah, there was never that sense of dread with the adaptation. I think that's a point I'm trying to make. There was never there was an excitement and an interest of how it's going to turn out. Because you genuinely felt people are trying to entertain you and they're trying to get you on board.
That's it. And it was nice to have that sort of media type presented with Silent Hill. I was excited. My cousin who I used to play Silent Hill with all the time when we were little, she was excited for it. It was like a buzz about it.
Mm-hmm. The bit that gets me in this is the way they rushed to get the Silent Hill storyline-wise. They really rushed through that part of Sharon, having the dreams, etc., and calling out. It's like, right, let's get this over and done with. Get her into the town. You know what I mean? That's nearly a 2-hour movie as well. It's not a short movie.
No, it's quite a long film. Yes.
Should they spend a bit more time on that, or was that just purely right? We're making this for Silent Hill fans. Let's just get to the main part and just get this plot stuff out of the way.
Yeah.
Or were you happy with it, or did you feel a bit frustrated?
Again, I'm looking at it from the game perspective because the first game does start from the car crash.
Mm-hmm.
So it was nice to have that little bit before with sort of Sharon's storyline. Yeah, I can see what you mean. It would have been nice to have a little bit more sort of background to it, maybe, because obviously when we meet up with Sharon, Rose, and Chris, it's like it's already happened multiple times already. They know that Sharon is sleepwalking.
Mm.
It would have been maybe nice to sort of see the build up to it, what sort of triggered it in the first place. But
yeah, it's almost like, right, let's get this bit out of the way so we can get started in the game storyline. I was laughing because there's the first bit. Obviously, Sean Bean plays Chris, and if you're familiar with Sean Bean whatsoever, he's a bit of a reputation these days for most iconic and number of screen deaths. That's his thing now, is Dan gloriously in every movie property he's in. And I just thought the bit where they're running like this, it's a weird setup with their house is, because 1 minute it's like in the woods and it's completely isolated and there's one path, yet they're going through this tunnel, it's all graffitied, and you're like, who the hell's living here to go and graffiti that? It must have been a location shot or something that did. And then it goes on to this like cliff and stuff, and you're like, where are these people living?
Yeah.
Like
no one around, and yet there's still life there, but there's no one there.
And tigers and stuff, and you're like, hold on, this doesn't make sense. So they must have made it to say that must have been a location shoot with that tunnel.
Yeah.
But the bit where Sean Bean goes over the top and he nearly gets wiped out by a truck, I'm like, here he goes. Oh, he's still alive.
He's that one.
I was just waiting this whole movie. Spoilers. This is one of the few movies Sean Bean survives in. And I was just waiting for his death scene, and it didn't come. And I'm like, what's happening here?
Was you disappointed?
I was confused. This is not the normal way of things.
Silent Hill's not the normal way of things.
It's only over ever since he started in the movies, I think he's only survived in like 2 or 3 movies.
And Silent Hill being one of them.
Yeah, which is completely against what you're expecting.
Yeah, but no, it is good. But yeah, that scene when he nearly gets hit by the bus. Is it a bus or a truck?
It's a truck, I think. Yeah, because it's like a logging route or something in the hills, or
Yeah. Wonder how she got across the road.
well, they went underneath.
Oh, of course they did. Yeah.
They used the tunnel with the graffiti.
Yeah. But I do like that opening. That opening sequence is good. I do like it, especially when Sharon's on the top of the cliff looking down.
Mm-hmm.
I quite like that. The way they sort of merged what she's seeing with what's happening.
Yeah, it's almost we get this idea of a powerful force. Colin Sharon. Now, it does get explained, but at the start you're going, what's going on here? If you're not a Silent Hill fan, I think you might be confused.
Yeah, I think so. I think going into it with prior knowledge, you sort of get the gist of what's going to happen. I think if it's like a newcomer, to the film, it is a bit sort of like, well, what's going on here? And it's like it's like such an unreal moment in a real setting. But I think the whole point of that opening sequence is to sort of convey that Sharon is being called to Silent Hill straight away. That's the. I think it's a good opening to the movie, having her being drawn to there straight away rather than, in the second film where it's just sort of literally come to Silent Hill. It's a bit more sort of atmospheric, more visual.
Yep, I don't know. I think I would have liked a bit more time spent in that. The way I need to highlight names on time. Rose, her behavior is a bit erratic. So to me, I would like a bit more context to explain her behavior and how they've maybe broken down psychologically, because it seems like she is completely off. It doesn't make sense. Her adopted daughter has trauma. They haven't tried hypnotherapy. They've given her a few pills, and that's been it. We don't know the relationship between her and Chris really, because there's a lot of distrust there.
Yeah,
you see from the opening scenes, and it's like, okay, what's going on here? I would have liked a bit more context, storytelling wise, for that, because it threw me a bit.
Yeah, I think there's obviously a lot of backstory that could have been explained. It's like almost, even when they're like following Sharon to the cliff edge, like we say, one went under the road and one went over, and it's like already there's like a disconnect between the two. Like they're trying to. Maybe that was intentional. I don't know.
It could have been, yeah.
It's like there's like a disconnect straight away, and obviously we don't know how many times this has happened. Obviously, it's happened before, but we don't know what sort of frame of mind they're in. Have they tried other things and it wasn't told to us? I suppose like going back, it would be nice to sort of have a more of a clearer picture about what their psychological state was, especially Rose when she does decide to take Sharon to Silent Hill.
I think we just needed one scene with an external psychiatrist and basically talking. I think what would have been the catalyst was it was taken out of their hands, because they just have Chris in. I think we should talk about having her committed somewhere or put somewhere. But if that decision was actually taken out of their hands, as in an external doctor said, look, we're going to have to commit her. This is getting beyond all. And then there's a foul and there's loads of incidents and she's near come to harm multiple times. And I don't think it would have been a massive scene, like a 5-minute scene, I think, with this doctor saying, look, we're going to have to make a decision, which then prompts Chris is going along with it because he's a pragmatist. Rose has this deeper connection, maybe because of the scene at the waterfall edge, that maybe the entity reached out to her.
Yeah.
And then Rose got trapped in, but Chris didn't have that experience because he wasn't there in that moment. Something along those lines, I think, just to make the rest of it make more sense.
Yeah,
And not the initial antagonism, like Chris cutting off her credit cards and stuff.
yeah.
That didn't sit well with me.
No, it's I think
Not
that
very clunky. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, it's like you say, it goes back to that distrust, doesn't it, between in the relationship? It's like obviously there's a history there which we don't know. Yeah, so it's like cutting off the credit cards, but still, you're not going to stop the car from going there. I'm not really too sure of the logic in that myself, but
Well, so she can fuel up.
yeah,
Um, I think if she had just went overnight and then Chris woke up the next morning, she's gone. Do you know what I mean? And then
yeah,
went looking for her, and then thought Silent Hill, and then he fought. Once again, because then his behavior afterwards of trying to find her doesn't make sense. Because then they've almost undermined their relationship.
yeah,
So, like I said, the first part, because once they get to Silent Hill itself, and once that story picks up, you know, what I mean, you're there for the ride. But I think the opening, and particularly if you're not a Silent Hill fan and you're just watching this as a casual viewer, you're gonna, I think, get put off a bit.
yeah. I think yeah, it's like if you are a fan, which I am, it's easier to understand because I have watched the film with people that don't know the games and they do seem a bit confused to start with, and then I've got to try and explain it to them before it happens, and it's like, oh. So yeah, so maybe for a casual viewer, like you said, it wouldn't have to be long, would it? About 5 minutes, just sort of introduction.
I like to try and think now, as a storyteller, where can these things be fixed? And this is something new I've started doing now. Is rather than just going, that was bad, that was terrible, or that was great, that was good. If there's something not quite right, I try to think now of, okay, how could we fix this without, because you know what's happening now. They're making movies, they're making them half cocked, and then they're spending the entire budget of the movie again on reshoots.
Yeah,
Now reshoots have always been a part of movie making, but they're spending as much of the budget because they don't get the storytelling right in the beginning, and that's what they're trying to fix.
yeah,
And it's turning out that these stupid bloated budgets for movies, and then they're crashing and burning, and then people are not getting work. You know, they're losing jobs
yeah.
because an industry's failing.
Some budgets are very big, aren't they?
Yeah, just and most of it is once they start the reshoots because they've screwed up the initial story.
Yeah,
I'm just thinking a simple scene here could fix this and get people on board
yeah, I
because
agree with
it's
that.
so rushed, and I think we needed to see Rose and Chris as a couple, as a happily married couple, because I think you have to be to adopt somebody, don't you? You have to be in like a massively stable relationship.
Yeah,
Adoption's it's not a casual thing.
no, it's not a quick thing, is it? It's like
No.
something obviously they've thought about together, and yeah, I think we've come in right obviously at the end where their relationship's maybe not as stable as it was before. So having that context would have probably made it a bit more sort of easier to understand.
Mhm. But yeah, she goes off. I like the way, to be honest, they brought in Bennett.
Yeah,
That was a clever use of bringing in another character.
definitely. I love the character Sybil Bennett in the movie. She plays a much bigger part in the movie than the game, in my opinion. I just think she's more human in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're first sort of introduced to her, when she goes up to Sharon in the car and she's like, "Are you okay?" And it sort of gives her that human element to it. It's like, and obviously Sharon says that she don't talk to strangers, and she's like a girl sort of thing. So I think Sybil Bennett's more relatable in the movie than in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I'm looking at it from a gamer's perspective. So,
Yep. So what are the main? So let's obviously the opening. We've got this sort of, I feel personally slightly rushed, not quite fleshed out opening to get us to the start of where the game storyline takes over.
yeah.
When we actually get to Silent Hill, and the car, like the bit, and this is our bit where Rose just guns it and goes herring through, crashing through gates in the middle of the night. Like, this is not something you do normally.
No, that's a bit dramatic.
Yeah. But how does that relate to, because we don't really get an explanation in the game of the car crash, do we? And I've only been through this a few years ago, and I flipping can't remember now because I've too much going on in my head. I've only a tiny brain.
The first Silent Hill game follows Harry and his daughter Cheryl, rather than Rose and Sharon. So they go on holiday to Silent Hill. That's the whole sort of premise. Cheryl wants to go on holiday to Silent Hill. That's when they go. So they go to Silent Hill. Same as Rose and Sharon. They enter Silent Hill. They see an apparition and the car crashes. And then that's where the game starts. And obviously that's where Rose wakes up in the fog world.
Mm-hmm. Well, not so much fog world, but what they've done here is burning ash world.
Yeah. So that's slightly different.
Yeah. However, with an underground, like basically a coal mine or something nearby, and it's just continually burning, they can't put it out because it's they just can't. It's too much is caught fire, and it's just part of it.
Yeah.
I could taste that. I'm like, how is she even just walking around casually? Like, I'd be choking to bits.
My eyes would be so red and running constantly.
Like, if you've ever been around bonfires or campfires and that, and you get on the wrong side of it, that's she done in. Was that a good change?
In the first game, it was sort of, was it fog? Was it snow? I don't know. I think they obviously went with the ash to fit in with their own sort of storyline. I just don't know if the ash and everything being that prominent was a good idea to make it sort of realistic, because I don't think it is. Like you say, you wouldn't be able to just walk freely around there.
If you're alive.
Yeah.
Which is a massive question in this movie.
Yeah. So it sort of already sort of makes you think, did they die in the car crash? We don't know, do we? So it's sort of like that already, it's that unanswered question. And I think that's made more prominent then when Chris goes into town.
And we'll see him, having to wear the mask and with the detective beside him and stuff. It's completely different.
Yeah.
Between real world and the alternate reality that's Silent Hill world.
Yeah. So there's like 3 worlds to this, really, isn't there? There's like the real world, the fog world is what we say sort of in game, and then like the other world, the
literal hell.
Yeah. So that's and I noticed that when Chris visits, there's no ash, so there's no ash floating around then.
Yeah, because it's basically the fog's representing the shifting of realms. It's a shift in the paradigm, which it's a good storytelling mechanism. So the viewer or the reader or the player knows that you're in the different world. It's the way of, okay, we're back here.
Yeah,
we're back in this world again. We've crossed over. Okay, and that lets you know then if you happen to come out of it or go back in. It's a good method. So I've no problem with that. I just found it a bit interesting that it was basically volcanic ash. I know it's a coal fire, but
yeah,
it's still basically that. But then, is the confusion at the start of this deliberate? That's what I'm starting to question now.
I think so. I think obviously the unanswered questions, I suppose, are there for like intrigue and to find out what happened throughout the story. With a lot of things, in the earlier part of the film, a lot of it does get wrapped up in the end. Further we go in, there's characters that pop up, Colin being one, the janitor. I'm sure we'll get to him at some point.
Yeah, all right, yeah.
But again, that's sort of like an unanswered question, which is answered further on. So I think maybe that confusion to start with is deliberate, because I think Silent Hill's confusing anyway. It's meant to be sort of confusing.
Is that not part of the survival horror, that you're meant to be confused? And you're meant, that's the whole point, is you don't know really what's going on. And it's if you are the point of view character getting thrust into this world. So you're meant to be sort of, yeah, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, I think so. And I think
I've got opinions already. Oh my God. Right. Dale's going straight in there. Oh, ding, ding, round one.
Oh dear, Dale.
Oh, Benjamin, big baby. For fuck's sake. Right, so back to the point I made, why this is a different franchise from Resident Evil. Resident Evil is more, yes, it's survival horror, but it's more action oriented. And your character, you know, your STARS agent, you're more of a get up and go, tackle things. This are either of the characters, either Rose, Chris, or God, what's his name in the game?
Harry,
right? Aren't. They're normal people thrust into extraordinary events. Therefore, they're going to react as those people do. And I'll have to disagree with Dale. I think both the movies and the game have done that really well. That sense of confusion of not knowing really what's going on, and you're unfolding the mystery as you go along, but you're not just getting all spelled out to you, and you're just, oh, I'm all fine with this now. Who in their right mind is going to be fine? Oh, I'm in an alternate reality. There's a demon hunting me, and there's a cult, and there's this, and my loved one's missing, and I might be dead.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think that's one of Silent Hill's qualities, really, is it's ordinary people. Like you say, with Resident Evil, the sort of main characters are military trained or like trained in special forces.
Mm-hmm.
So they're sort of more prepared to deal with strange occurrences. But with Silent Hill, it's just ordinary, you know, your average Joe just going in and sort of discovering it. And obviously the viewer, we're discovering it with them. And obviously we're as confused as they are because we don't know what's going on ourselves.
Yeah. So that's the whole point. That's the whole, it's the eeriness in that. And when you're playing and you're going through it and things jump out at you or go wibble and that, you're like,
yeah.
You know, and that's exactly how you react as a normal functioning human being of being put into a flipping hellscape world, you know, and not knowing why any of this is going on.
Yeah, you'd be like, what the hell's going on here? Like, yeah.
Too dystopian and baffling. But yeah, but that's what we're arguing here. That's the point. It's meant to unnerve you. It's meant to throw you off balance. You're meant to be, even playing the game as well, you're meant to be going through this going, what the hell's happening?
Yeah.
And then the real, and because I think I premised that this at the start saying this is a slow burner, it's not an instant gratification sort of game. It's, you are slowly uncovering what is going on, and then the realization is starting to dawn on you where you are. And that's not, it doesn't mean that everything's fine. In fact, it's going to be worse when you realize what the hell's happening.
Yeah, definitely. It's not, I think slowly having that sort of tension and the atmosphere built up definitely adds an extra layer of, not like a layer of confusion, but a layer of like fear and intrigue as well. Whereas obviously we're referencing Resident Evil as well, where that's more, like you say, more action focused. It's more sort of showing you what's happening, where Silent Hill's sort of telling you what's happening, but without showing you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, even though they're classed as like the same genre as such, it's like completely different worlds.
But is that not the point of horror? You could have things within the same genre and could be completely different.
Definitely, yeah.
That's what I love about the horror genre. There is such a wide scope of survival horror. It doesn't just mean clunk, you're in this little narrow field and that's it. Even within the subgenres, you have so much scope to play with, and it's fantastic.
Definitely.
Yeah, because I only play it's up on the channel, you know what I mean? I've only been through this about, what was it, a month and a half ago? Just actually to catch up in preparation for this as well, to get the experience of the game. I still find it, even though it's a PS1 game, and on Steam they have it as a PS1, you can get that version, not the remix one.
Yeah.
But even in its original format, as PS1, fixed camera, you name it, the atmosphere and the storytelling, and this was groundbreaking breaking in the gaming industry. These sort of games, and once again, horror led the way,
Yeah.
as it does with every medium. It's the horror genre that goes first and tests boundaries. And this went from your side scroller level by level end a boss fight to being something more.
Yeah, definitely. I think you know, games like Sweet Home and then obviously Resident Evil really sort of changed horror. And then when Silent Hill came along, it was just something obviously we'd never seen before, and it's something completely different, and it was something so off the wall. Why, like, what the hell's going on? And I think, like you say, like the atmosphere still grabs you now. Like in an old game, it still grabs you, and I think the film really does convey that once it starts getting into the town. With like the sort of different camera angles and stuff that's used translates over to the film. Obviously, the music is used in the games and the film, so I think it's just definitely it's a unique experience. And I think it is an experience rather than, just watching a movie or playing a game. I think it is actually like an experience.
Yeah. Did you get what I maybe got from this is that Rose going through this felt like you were going through the game levels?
Yeah. And I think I wrote in my notes, actually, it's very game-like. Obviously, Silent Hill is a game before it was a film. So, but it was like as she was going through the town, she's picking up clues, she's picking up items.
When she opens the drawer and gets a flashlight.
Yeah.
Okay, press X the other hand.
And it's literally, that's what it is in the game, isn't it? You open a drawer and there's a flashlight. So
I'm just waiting for the inventory screen to pop up.
Yeah. Health drink.
That was funny.
But yeah, it's very, and I also sort of wrote in my notes in preparation for this, is like, another reason I think it's game-like is throughout it, she acquires a knife, which is used at one point, and then the knife
gets dropped.
So I think it's very game-like in its structure, and it's like, it is almost like we're controlling Rose, but like we're watching someone else control Rose.
Yeah, it's almost like a live stream, isn't it, of somebody else playing the game? Like even before the concept of live streaming, like that was never a thing.
Yeah.
2006. I mean, this is what, when's live stream? I would say less than 10 years, like 5 years, really. It's become prominent.
Yeah, it's
still quite a new phenomenon.
Yeah.
We didn't have that concept of somebody live streaming a game and us just going along for the ride.
Yeah, and that's what it's like when you're watching it. It's like someone else is playing the game, sort of thing. Because I think the story beats and stuff, like
even making the wrong choices.
Yeah, and like maps and stuff, Obviously, Silent Hill's very big on maps in game, and obviously they wanted to translate that into the film. So
left, right. I'm like, just press triangle. What are you doing?
I quite like the use of maps in the film, because I think when she's looking at, especially the one on, it's like on a lamppost of like the street names.
Oh, the bus the bus map, the bus route.
Yeah. Obviously the road names are like horror authors, and they actually use that in the game. Like the streets of Silent Hill were all named after horror writers, which is a nice little touch, and I'm glad that they brought a lot of that back in for the film.
Do you know why everyone goes on now? Fan service. Oh, you're servicing the fans. Is that not the point?
Well, yeah.
If you want the fandom to continue giving you money, that you pay them some service and you show them that you actually appreciate them for supporting you.
Yeah.
Why has that become such a toxic trait? Or is that just people using it as a shield to hide bad material now?
I'm not sure. It's like, that's quite a new term, really, fan service, I think.
Yeah, it's just dickheads. Usually spider by dickheads, to be honest. They're just...
It's like you say, you're not going to bring out a Silent Hill game or a Resident Evil film or a Resident Evil film and not tap into the millions of people that like the games.
Yeah.
It sort of goes against everything then.
Well, they've tried to do that, hence why game studios are closing down, movie studios are closing down, all the games journalists, like that's a massive thing over the last
Yeah.
year. Games journalism has died on its arse because we hate gamers. You're like, really? Um, what the hell? And it's back to this whole I'm only doing this till I get my real job until I make it.
Yeah.
That sort of thumb your nose down at the people that make the thing. Like, as horror creators and horror fans, we are well aware of, and people sticking their nose up there. Oh, you create horror. Oh, well, I like real work. I like real artists.
Yeah.
That sort of snobbishness, which is horrendous.
Yeah. I think it needs to be for the fans. I mean, who else is it for?
Now, can you entice new fans in? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm saying that the beginning of this is where I think the movie fails.
For new fans.
To bring new fans in, it just needed tied up a bit to sort of bring somebody who wasn't familiar with this world into it.
Yeah, I think because obviously the director was a fan himself, maybe he just assumed that fans would be his only viewership.
I can see that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know yourself, if you're a fan or something, you're like, just something party brain. How would you not know about blah 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 blah? You know what it's like when you talk to a nerd about something.
I know.
What do you mean about blah 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 blah? And,
I know. I'm a bit like that with Silent Hill. Like I was speaking to someone the other day, and I said I'm doing a talk on Silent Hill, and they're like, "On what?" I'm like, oh, "Don't talk to me."
Begone, peasant.
But I think it's got more popular as well, especially in recent times.
But there's a reason why these franchises are tentpole franchises and why they last so long is because the work has been put into it, and the care and the love and the genuine desire for the audience member or the player to have a good time.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's all I've been crying about. Just bring that back. Bring that mentality back.
Yeah. I think, developers and everything need to have the passion and the love for the actual thing that they're doing rather than just doing it for a paycheck or whatever. I think, with Resident Evil and Silent Hill, they're both their own thing, but you can tell that the people that done it loved it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really important.
And that's the bit that'll sway you. If there's something confusing or, like I said, this is not a quick thrill. This is a slow burner, atmospheric horror. It's psychological, super not. It crosses so many subgenres because you've got psychological horror here, you've got supernatural horror, you've everything, you've monsters,
Yeah.
manifestations, you've alternate dimensions. So you've a bit of, oh my god, what am I thinking about? Not ethereal. There's a bit of that too. Other worlds, Cthulhu, Eldritch horror. Oh my god, I'm an idiot. Sorry, that word was not leaving my brain. You have a bit of Eldritch horror as well because I know it's represented as hell, but it may not be.
Yeah,
it could be another dimension.
Yeah, definitely, and I think it does convey a hellish atmosphere when obviously it does turn into full psycho mode.
Mm-hmm.
When things start happening, it's like, whoa.
Which the game pretty much does that as well. Like there's a certain point in the game, it just goes, whoa, wibble, tentacles coming at you.
And it's like almost as if nothing's happening or you don't think anything's happening, and then everything's happening at the same time. And when you look back at the quiet moments, you sort of pick up actually things were happening. I just didn't notice it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's quite important. I think that's good. I like that storytelling technique.
Yep. A bit that really made me confused was Rose does not strike me as the sort of person that carries a Zippo lighter.
No.
I think a certain person carries a Zippo lighter and it's not Rose.
I think that ties in with the game element because Harry carried a Zippo lighter. on that first scene, didn't they?
Yeah, but should Rose not have found the Zippo letter? Would that not have made more sense, or pick it up and try
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, I don't think, because you never see that lighter again, and that's like, it's like, you finish with this item, do you want to discard it?
Yeah,
um, yeah, until you mentioned it, I didn't really think about about the Zippo lighter.
mm.
But she wouldn't be the type because she
And I
doesn't.
wouldn't see Chris being the type that carries a letter. It's just what maybe the detective.
Um,
Did you see why it's sort of important? Why it's little things like that, storytelling wise. Like you know yourself as a writer, a character. What will your character do?
yeah,
Not for the expediency of the plot. And this is where a lot of writers get frustrated. Oh, my character's not doing what I want them to do. I need them to get here. They're they wouldn't do this. They wouldn't do that.
I know that.
That's where the movie I think takes a few liberties.
Yeah, and I think that's very video game-esque, isn't it? To have a lighter, it's like in like Resident Evil. There's like always a lighter, but then they do find the lighter normally. But yeah, it's sort of like, why would she have that on her? She wouldn't really, would she? But
Yeah. I read the town of Centralia, Pennsylvania, an almost abandoned town with 40-year-old coal fire burning underneath. It was the inspiration behind the movie adaptation. Yeah, that's when you have something grounded in reality that this stuff actually happens. Yeah, it does help you suspend disbelief that these things are possible.
yeah, definitely. Definitely.
But, what we were arguing was that Rose didn't choke once.
No.
Like she looked at the thing, and if that thing was filled with smoke and like even if it's burning wood, never mind burning coal, but you know what I mean. You'd be like tasting that. But I think that adds to the fact that she's not in the real world, and then the later scene I think helped them balance it out. So this is where the movie is deliberately throwing you off balance. I think once again, unreliable narrator, the perspective, of the character that you're sort of going, this doesn't make sense, and you can see her sort of looking about a bit confused. Like the actress that played Rose, I think, was pretty decent on this.
Yeah, Radha Mitchell. I think that was her name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like the casting for Rose. I think when she first sort of goes into the town and sort of she puts the ash on her face, doesn't she? And she's, you can believe it's ash, but at the same time you can't believe it's ash because like she's not choking, like we said.
Yep.
So it's sort of like what's happened in between the car crash and now. It's like something's happened, and then like it's also like we mentioned before when Chris shows up and it's a completely different world again, and it's almost like the parallel universes sort of thing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
There's a brilliant scene which I love with Chris going out of the school and Rose runs past him in the other world.
Yes, and he feels that sort of,
and he can smell the perfume. Yeah. So again, it's that added layer of more confusion on top of the confusion that you've already got. I love that scene though when she's.
But it's not a thing with paranormal movies as well, where you've got an entity haunting a location, and you'll get a smell of, maybe their favorite perfume or something. And that's what investigators sort of go through. So they bring that element in, which I thought I can't remember now. The game doesn't really go into this element of it, does it? It's basically from Harry's perspective. He's in the universe.
Yeah, you don't see any sort of other universe apart from obviously the hellscape, but it's not really explained. With Harry's character, he sort of questions if it's fog or snow, or and then it's sort of like just left there, and then the fog world is the real world in that respect because we don't have that extra layer that we're given here.
I like this extra layer, if I'm honest. I thought it added something rather than took away from the game.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a nice touch to have that extra level, and it's like that one extra level of depth. Maybe, well, they could do it in a game, but it makes more sense in a movie format, I think, to have that extra layer put on. because it's in the game it's a dad looking for his daughter, but obviously in the film it's a mother looking for the daughter, but the dad's also looking for his wife. So it's like freeway. It's like a freeway thing, isn't
Yeah.
it?
But that, I think Chris's character in this was the one helping to explain maybe the general audience of what this universe is. If they had just stuck it in Silent Hill Rose as just stuck it like Harry throughout the game, I don't think non-fans of the franchise would have turned on to this film.
No.
I think we needed that extra layer of, and once again, show don't tell. We'll see Chris come through the motions. We'll see the detective bringing through to see what's happening in the real world. The fact that the car crashed, but there's nobody inside it,
Yeah.
leaves questions of what's actually happened. How does this work? We know then that Rose is not in the real world.
Yeah.
Her and Sarah have gone somewhere else, and trying not to say the other name yet.
Yeah. So yeah, I think yeah, I agree with that. I think having that extra layer of real world is sort of helps the viewer understand that actually, yeah, this is happening in real life, but the other worlds are sort of explaining what happened after. But again, it's all that confusion. But it does add an interesting sort of perspective on it, because they're looking at it from obviously the police side of it, which is quite interesting, and we don't get that in the game.
Sean Bean was an interest. This is the bit that sort of sticks to me like a strange sort of cog in the machine. Was Sean Bean a good casting choice for Chris?
No.
And his accent as well, you're trying to do an American accent, was we can see why he doesn't have too many lines, because it'd be like me trying to do an American accent. Struggle greatly. He is such a pronounced Yorkshire accent. That's that's it.
I don't think his character. I don't think he suited it, to be honest.
Then he sort of Sean Bean overwrote the Chris character, and you're sort of in a bit of trouble. Like, an unknown actor might have done a better job, I think, or helped to suspend disbelief. But with Sean Bean being there, you're like,
I think because he is well known, it was hard to sort of place him in a Silent Hill film where it's not a smaller scale, but it's not like, I don't know what I'm trying to get at. But
I think you're trying to get at what I'm trying to get at and put it into words. It doesn't
he seems
fit.
to be too big for what he's trying to do.
Yeah, he's too big of a name, or too iconic of a. He's almost a character in his own right. Not that he doesn't diversify his roles, but in this, I don't think it was a good casting choice. I think if another actor had played Chris, I think this would have flowed so much better, because I've just got that, like I said, the little grain of sand in my eye going, it's Sean Bean. It's Sean Bean, and he's playing like a secondary character, and he's still alive. Like, we're halfway through the movie, and Sean Bean's still alive. This isn't right. All this stuff in the logic centers going to the back of your head.
I don't.
You have to say a bastard once.
No. No, he just said. I don't think he said anything like that, did he?
No, he was very. I think because he was putting on an American accent, he was very limited with his dialogue, and I could understand if I was made to put on an American accent, I would say as little words as possible, because I know fine rightly that this accent's my alpha accent, and it's not going away anytime soon.
I think, you can see that obviously he was a secondary character for some reason, and maybe that was the reason, because of the accent. But I don't think it was a good fit for that character.
No.
Although, I just sort of take it for what it is, But deep diving like we are now, I would probably cast someone slightly different.
Yeah, just more generic.
Yeah,
because the Chris character is more of a plot device than a central character. This is Rose's story.
Yeah,
it's Sarah's, and as we start to meet people in the town, and God, it didn't I didn't take her name down. The bag lady, the crazy lady on the street that goes
Dahlia.
Dahlia, yeah.
Dahlia Gillespie, which interestingly, she played a completely different part in the games.
Mhm.
So that was an interesting sort of take on the character, with Dahlia being sort of like the sort of outsider, outcasted lady, sort of. Because in the game, she's very well. She plays Christabella's role in the game, doesn't she?
Mhm.
She's sort of like in charge. She's got that sort of authoritative figure in the game, but in the film, she is, the outsider, the weirdo sort of thing. She is sort of cast aside, isn't she?
Yeah, and you're almost ready to brush her off immediately. Just another strange character in this. But yeah, then it unfolds. I just like the way this unfolds as well. You have to pay attention and you have to be invested in the story. You can't just dial this one in. Maybe
Yeah.
that's what a lot of people have a problem with.
Yeah, I think it is a movie you got to sort of concentrate on, because the slightest thing could mean something big,
Mhm.
and it's like the whole way through the film, there's like religious imagery, religious things, so it's already hinting towards something.
But it's out of shadow because the actual imagery, you think, blink and you miss it, you think it's a certain thing, like the top of the church and all. You think you're looking at
Yeah,
like a cross, but it's not really. And then it's only when you sort of get deeper in, it all gets revealed. I just like that.
yeah, that's some good world building, I think.
Mhm.
Also, the reference of fire throughout the whole film is quite prominent. Obviously, when Rose first encounters the Grey Children monsters,
They were great.
I like them ones. She wakes up with Ring of Fire playing, doesn't she, by Johnny
Yep.
Cash? So I think there's always that fire element as well, obviously with the coal burning as well, and fire takes a big part of it, obviously, and then it's revealed at the end how big a thing fire is, and then you get all the backstory then.
What's Chris saying? I think horror video games are more effective medium than movies because you're personally and actively invested in the choices and the dangers. Well, if you see me play Alien Isolation, like when you've got the headphones in and that, and you're moving and things happen depending on what you do, yeah, you're there, you're in the zone, and even as a PS1 game, even with fixed camera, which I think it's because it came out after Resident Evil, they fixed some of the issues that the clunkiness was gone. I did not feel as clunky, but you're still immersed in the experience, and you think this is the transition to modern gaming
Yeah,
back in the day. So this is all brand new. This was amazing if you think about it back then when you first got the PS1 and this storytelling element is
yeah,
fantastic. Like we'd never experienced this before at that level with a game, and yeah, you are immersed. You're trying to get through it, and then something comes at you. You're like, oh,
yeah, yeah. I don't know. Video games are obviously more interactive, aren't they? So you're sort of thrust more into the atmosphere because you have to concentrate on what you're doing.
yep.
But I think movies can be just as immersive if it's like with Silent Hill, you have to concentrate. And I think the immersion, I think sometimes maybe your own like state of mind sort of helps as well.
Mhm.
If it's like if someone says, "Oh, watch a horror film or whatever," and they're like, "Oh no, I don't want to watch a horror. I want to watch a comedy," but you put a horror on, the one that wanted the comedy is not going to enjoy the horror film because that's not what they wanted.
Yep. Or if you want an action, as in
Yeah,
a popcorn flick,
yeah,
this is not it.
no,
This is not a popcorn flick. This is not just watching bodies. Like in terms of actual gore and people dying, it's very limited.
yeah.
And
Although,
Now, I'm not saying there isn't, but when
Yeah.
you understand the context of what's happening, nobody actually dies in this movie.
No, I think there's a couple of deaths, but I think that's literally just because it was there
Yeah,
for a reason. It was
but
there.
if you think about the context of the movie, they're not really deaths.
No.
It's a deeper. We've got souls. The deaths have already happened before the game begins,
Yeah.
and that's the beauty of this. And it's still unsettling. And one thing it did really well with as well, the siren, the air raid siren.
Yeah. I like that, and it was much more prominent in the film, and it played a bigger part in the film than it did in the game. Even though it was in the game, it wasn't such a big thing. In the game, it was sort of like it's getting darker, but in the film, that heightened audio of the air raid siren really sort of made the viewers think something's happening, something's about to happen now. So, which I loved. I love that transition.
And it sort of shows as well, you can be told this is about to happen, and it builds that anticipation.
Yeah, of what's going to happen now. Like,
Yep.
because after the first time it happens, and then the next time it happens, people are like, "Oh no, what's going to be presented now?"
Yeah.
I think my favorite transition is in the bathroom when you can actually see the walls and the paint start falling off and the tiles, and then you can see the transition sort of fully from the sort of fog world to the other world. And that scene was actually near enough copied in Silent Hill Homecoming, a game that came out a couple of years later. And then obviously with the film, Colin is revealed to us.
Yes. So Rose thinks she's being led by by Sarah. But we know that's not it's obvious from the start it's not the case. We know it's not Sarah. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Why she'd be running away and like leading her on. So we know there's something else going on. But yeah, when we get the bathroom scene and she's like, we know we're going to see something when somebody's pushing doors like that.
Yeah.
But we know we're going to see something. But I was not expecting that. That was like, wow.
No. And that was, again, when she picked out the hotel thing from its mouth. That was very video game-esque. The way it's
Double dare you written in, blood in the wall,
and the way it sort of shined a little bit, that was very video game style. But then obviously the transition happened, and then he came alive.
Yeah. Once he came to Hellscape, that's it. He activated, but it really did feel like a game. That's the thing. It felt like that's exactly what would happen in the game. You sort of know that thing's there. You've a hint. It's like when you go in, you see the row of statues.
Yeah.
At some point you're going to step in a tile or something, and then they're going to
One
start swinging.
Alive, yeah. No, I like that scene.
I love the way they were unapologetic in terms of the imagery. Like a lot of times when they're adapting video game imagery to the big screen, they sanitize it.
Yeah.
They didn't with this.
No, it was quite raw, wasn't it? And I think that's rightly so. The games were quite unrestricted. And I think if we had sort of like the blockbuster filter on it, I don't think it would have worked.
Oh god, no, it'd just be bland. You'd be bored. You need that element of horror.
Yeah,
and that's what makes this
the grittiness of it.
Yep. And then you're really starting to, because I think it's around about this point. This is just after Chris has appeared in the scene. So we know that Rose is in another realm. So you also know as well that there aren't going to be bodies laying about in the real world. The police would have found it by now. They've already combed this town about 6 times at least. before closing it off.
Yeah.
So we know we're somewhere else, and we know that it's not a nice place and something's going on. And it just adds to that horror, the fact that this man is essentially being tormented or he's used as a beast.
Yeah.
And yeah, when we find out why, it's like, yeah, well, I've no sympathy for you.
Yes. I also think that's pretty clever how they did that. But I'm sure we'll talk about that in a
Yeah,
bit.
but that's pure storytelling again.
Yeah, because that's like not showing, but you know what's happening.
Yep. Do you get a feeling that I don't feel that there's any, apart from, like I said, the intro, which I felt was rushed, I don't feel any time's been wasted in this.
No, I think it's very packed. It's packed full. And I think even like the slower bits when they're walking around with Anna, one of the cult members, there's still all that explanation whilst they're walking around. It's not just aimlessly walking around. Like there is something always happening. I do think like this film could have been much longer, but like you say, not a second was wasted. It was all used, and it's not. I've watched this film countless times, and I'm still not bored. And there's not points in it where you can get bored. I don't think because there's always new things that you're learning. And that goes back to it's very video game-esque. Like in games, you're always learning something. You're picking up notes or whatever. I think it hits all the right beats once they're in the town.
Yeah, that's a big thing. You're just going along here and you feel like you're part of this world and everything's happening at the right pace. Like I don't feel like it's being elongated out for no reason, or there's it's being rushed. Like the pace in this once they hit the town is fantastic, like the whole way across, and it's very rare you get a movie like that.
Yeah, I agree because in a lot of movies you're watching it and you think, oh well, that could have been cut, or they didn't need that. I think it's good. It has got a good pace, and I think similarly with the games, the more you get into it, the pace does pick up, and then towards the end, it's like going quite quick. No, I think the pacing's really good.
Yep. And of course, the thing that we're all waiting for, anyone that's a fan of Silent Hill, is the Red Pyramid head reveal. Did not disappoint.
He is a good character, although he shouldn't really be in this film if we go by lore and canon. But how could you not have Pyramid Head in a Silent Hill game? A Silent Hill film. I do like the character, and I think the way he's portrayed in the film serves its own reasons why he's there. Whereas, like, because Pyramid Head first shows up in Silent Hill 2, the game, and he's a manifestation of that person, that person's mind. But in the film, even though it's the same character, he sort of represents something else.
I always question what he's doing with the nurses.
Yeah.
The reveal of the game. Like in the original, not the remake, but the original, you're like, he's in a corner with two nurses, and it looks a bit, oh, what are you up to?
Looks a bit suspicious.
It does a bit. You're like, okay.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, the actor that played Colin is Red Pyramid Head. So he did have a bigger part in the film.
Actually, do you know what? That makes sense as well. Just why not?
Yeah.
Rather than waste the budget. Once again, I don't feel like there's anything bloated or wasted here.
No. But when Pyramid Head is first revealed with, that knife that he's dragging behind, you can almost feel the weight of the knife as it's dragging along the floor, which I love. And then later on, obviously, they're sort of, I don't know what sort of room they're in, but they got like the industrial fan behind them.
Yeah, that's when Bennett comes to rescue again, and she brings a gun to a knife fight, a sword fight, and like,
yeah, I don't know.
Even that was well done. Like, let's be honest. I know it was CGI, and I know it's early 2000s CGI, but by using the filters and the tone, they mute it down enough that it feels realistic.
Yeah.
You look at stuff today, and it's so cartoonish, and you have no investment whatsoever.
No. You can definitely see where the money's gone.
Bloomhouse is really bad for it. If you look at their recent films,
Yeah.
like, they look almost cartoonish.
Yeah. And I think when CG first came out, it seems like it was better then than it is now, because I think people are using it too freely now.
And there's also a hint that, you know, I mean, it was overlaying practical effects,
Yeah.
and they were figuring it was like if you think about the 80s, you know, of horror, like, it was all about the special effects teams, and they were all like the mad scientists,
Yeah.
and those people were still in the industry when CGI came, so it was just another toy, and they didn't just use it sparingly. Now it's become, like I said, the grift, the corporate, you know, as in people just slot into positions,
Yeah.
and just do it for the sake of doing it, and there's no passion.
Yeah.
And it's a separate house, you know, it's a separate software house now does the effects, so it's not even the original special effects team attached to the production, where the practical effect, the special effects team are usually on set.
Yeah.
That's a massive difference. You look at any DVD, any commentary, any talking about the film, and the special effects team are there on set. Even the bad ones are trying to do something. Midnight Meat Train's a perfect example, where for the first time they used CGI for the eyeball scene, and it looks horrendous. But they thought they were doing a good thing because they couldn't get it practically to do that.
Yeah.
But then again, on the other side, the helmet cam thing, where Mahogany's beating the girl, they had her with a crash helmet on with the camera.
Yeah.
Like, that was never done before. To get
Yeah.
that point of view perspective, so he could actually hit her with the mallet at full force. I know it was a rubber mallet, but you could actually get those strikes.
Yeah.
And visceral aspect of it. So where they got the CGI wrong, they also got it right in other things. And this sense of wanting to entertain you. Now it's okay, we've done all our bits, ship it to the software house. They're Project 10, and don't give a toss. They're not involved with the film. It's just another thing that lands on their desk, almost civil servant
Yeah.
mentality.
And I think that it also helps that fans make like this film, and like if a fan's involved, it does seem like they are more sparingly with CG, or if they do use it, they make sure that they use it well. You know, Silent Hill being one of them, Resident Evil another one. I think as a fan, sharing to the world your passion, I think you're very protective over it.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to make sure it's 100% right and something 100% perfect. You know, it's like with anything, if you've got passion, you want to make sure it's 100%.
Yeah, and even if you don't always hit the mark, I think the attempt translates across.
Yeah.
And this is what's missing from a lot of current day productions, is that I'm into this thing. I want you to be in this thing too. Here's me trying to convince you. That's gone. And that's what needs to come back. And that's why this movie, we'll talk about it like 20 odd years later.
Yeah.
19 years later, sorry. And people still talk about it another 10. Because that aspect of, right, I really love Silent Hill. I want you to enjoy it too. Now, I know you're not a gamer, but here's a movie, and maybe if you don't never play the game, at least you'll appreciate the world and know why people. That's what I think Gans is trying to like translate with this movie.
Yeah.
You know, as in, I want you to step in this world and understand why I love it so much.
Yeah, definitely.
Even if you never buy a console or pick it up, you know.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a movie sort of for everyone, but for the fans from a fan. And I think that passion really sort of plays out, especially in like the pyramid head scenes, and you know, you can almost believe that it's happening because the attention to detail with the CG and the practical stuff, everything's down. He's got it down to a T sort of thing.
I love the fact this is a bit where Bennett takes off the handcuffs because Rose has been in handcuffs the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah.
She didn't magically get rid of them,
No.
which was cool as well. She was encumbered.
Yeah. I think that's almost like quite a pivotal moment in the story. And I did write in my notes that sort of when the handcuffs come off, Rose automatically goes into sort of the protective mother role, even with Sybil, because Sybil's like, what the hell's going on? And already Rose is trying to calm her down. She's trying to take that motherly role. And I think taking off the handcuffs is a pivotal moment in it. It sort of frees her to be like a mum figure.
And an acceptance of, did you see that? Did this actually happen? And, what have we got involved with? And then also with sort of transport back to the real world. And the detectives explained to Chris about Sybil's character that basically, I think it should have happened maybe more than once that random people turn up with kids, but the fact that it happened the year previously, some bloke basically brought a kid to Silent Hill and threw it into, tried to throw it into the fire as like a human sacrifice.
Yeah.
And Sybil was there. She basically stayed with the kid until rescue came. That's the sort of person that she is.
Yeah.
And it was sort of hinted at that, once again, these are the bits I think need a bit more explanation or tidied up. But if this was happening on a regular basis, that people regularly come to this town to offer child sacrifices because Alyssa's reaching out and it's messing with people's heads and drawing them to the place.
I think that sort of explanation was to give a more human element to Sybil, wasn't it? I didn't really, until you mentioned it, I didn't really think about there being multiple people that's taking children to Silent Hill. But
this is where I think it's the outside story. And back to what you said about Gans being a Silent Hill fan, he automatically assumes you know all this.
Yeah, everyone knows.
That's where he's kind of messed up a bit. He can't see the wood for the trees.
Yeah,
he's deep into it, and it's easy to do. Like that's the other side of everything's about balance, isn't it? You'd be a super fan of something, but if you make something too nerdy and too in depth, people don't get it. And actually, we're seeing from like Dale in the comments and Chris and that, people that come from the outside or maybe not familiar with the property as much are confused by this movie, and I can see that because a bit more time. He had the element of the outside trying to explain. This is where maybe another writer could have come in and helped out a bit, a non-Silent Hill person.
Yeah.
To go, okay, this might help it make more sense. This is why is the town putting out this to draw people in, and why is it affecting people? Well, it's obviously two different worlds, so it's not going to translate well.
Yeah. I think it's a good thing that we got the real life, like the real world elements. But like you said, I think those real world elements maybe should have been more explained and more sort of fleshed out. But it is a nice addition. I think in is it that conversation with Sybil that he shows him his hands?
It's towards the end.
That's towards the end.
It's towards the end where Chris goes and starts investigating himself and starts breaking and entering and so forth and going to the orphanage.
Yeah, like corners a nun, like because why not?
That's going to be convincing and set you up a good stead.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. It's very ham-fisted, the real world stuff, which is a shame because that's the bit that's people who aren't fans of the franchise are relying on to explain the story to them.
Yeah.
And that's a bit, I think, is the weakest part of this movie. And I can understand why it didn't do as well as it could have done.
Yeah. I think, yeah, it's like you said, that, you know, those real life parts are for sort of like non-fans. But Chris Gans automatically assumes that people knows what's happening, because if you're a big fan of something, like, you know,
Yeah, why wouldn't you be? You know,
yeah,
you
why
can just see that.
that? Like, you should know that.
It's like me when I talk to a non-horror fan
Yeah.
and I go straight into the deep end, like Chris. Was it? He stays in the shallow end of the horror pool. Yeah, so I forget myself at times when I'm talking to people outside of the horror genre, and I go straight there, and
Yeah.
then you look at their face, just completely taken aback. Like, oh, I'm like, what? Oh, right, sorry, I should have maybe taken it back about 5 steps.
Yeah.
Apologies for that, especially with my sense of humor. Like, I go to dark places, and I forget that people don't always respond to it.
No.
So it's easy. It's easy to understand why. Once again, because I don't feel this is done with bad intentions, I'm prepared to forgive a lot.
I think so. I think because you can see the joy and the passion and, you know, what he wanted to create. I think you can appreciate it no matter what level of fan you are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, past the halfway mark of the film, things start sort of slotting in, and you can sort of make more sense of everything. Even as like a non-fan, I believe that you, by the end of it, you will understand what's happened. But yeah, I think the real life elements may be slightly off-putting, especially for people that literally have no idea what's going on.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, this is where to go to the hotel now that they've got the key number. They're trying to figure things out, and we meet more of the sort of. We realize now that the Silent Hill is not uninhabited. It's not just one random person. There are people here.
Yeah.
And that starts to play. And then we realize as well that Rose is definitely being led on a chase, and it's not by Sarah. And this is where the name Alyssa starts to come into play.
Yeah. Alessa's obviously it was, she's a big part in the first and third game. So I'm glad they didn't change the name of that character, because I think if they had done that, it would have been wouldn't have been so powerful, especially for a fan. Alessa's such an important character.
Yeah, and she's not an evil character.
No.
I 100% get her.
Yeah. Although, you know, towards like the end part, maybe if someone's walked into the film halfway through and didn't get all the backstory, yeah, she maybe is an evil character to them. But actually, when you realize what's happened,
if you know me at all, I'd do 100 times worse. Yeah, I'm that sort of, yeah, absolutely. That's 100% understandable. And then we start to unravel, because Chris is doing his investigation. We start to unravel Alyssa's story.
Yeah.
And the events in the town. And this is where the detective end, because I thought it was a bit weird him wearing gloves, you know, cheesy. And then when he takes them off, realizes he's burned his hands.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Nothing's wasted.
No, he played a big part in Alessa's story, didn't he? That character wasn't in the game. That's sort of a new character. But yeah, it's like you said, nothing was wasted. Everything was for a reason. Almost as if it's like, again, like a video game, like something's there for a reason.
Yep.
You're going to have to use that at some point. I love the scene when they actually discover, yeah, it's not just them in the town. There are others here, and they're running towards the church. I love it when the music picks up and you see all the people emerging from like the smog.
Yep.
And then obviously the darkness arrives and Pyramid Head does what he does.
That was fantastic, though.
Yeah, that's always a fun scene to watch.
But once again, it's the unapologetic nature. I'm sick and tired of, and we've talked about this before, this idea of horror creators having to apologize for what they are.
Yeah,
I hate that. It really winds me up. And I'm sick and tired of, not just in movies, but writing as well, this idea of sensitivity reading and, you must sanitize, you must censor yourself because that one person might go over the edge because they can't discern fantasy from reality, and that's your problem, not theirs.
yeah,
That they don't have to take any personal responsibility for it. Everything must be fluffy and cotton wool based, and they don't have to form friendships with people who might advise them on movies to watch or not watch. They don't have to have friends. They just have to dictate that the world bends around their bubble, and then that's why everything is terrible today. It's just bland. There's no emotion in it. This is visceral. It's
yeah.
not messing about, and it's done as well with purpose. It's not gratuitous,
No,
which it gives it another layer as well. But the violence in this is purposeful, and there's a reason for it.
yeah, yeah. It's not just gore for gore's sake. It is there's a reason why it's happened, and I agree with the fantasy reality statement that you made. But this film is like the definition of what's fantasy, what's reality. I think that's great. Once they're inside the church and instantly they think they're witches. So obviously you think something's happening here. Obviously it's like a cult. So
Yeah, and God, Christabella, like, if you don't know she's a villain, don't know what to tell you.
yeah,
The way everyone else is in drab clothing and she's the only one wearing color.
yeah,
Like, you just it screams at you. And then this will get the reveal. It's not a cross on top of the church. It's the sigil.
yeah. The symbol for the cult
Yeah.
or the symbol for their faith. I think it was interesting having Christabella because, like I said before, that was Dahlia's character in the game. So that added like a sort of a different direction. I do like Christabella's character, although the actress said that she never knew that they were games before she started filming. But again, I think that's quite an interesting way to play it. If she'd never played the games or never knew of the games, so she was sort of like a non-fan playing quite an important character, and I think she did really well. I love the actress that played that.
I don't think there's a bad performance in this.
No.
Everyone does. The only weak performance is Sean Bean as Chris, but it's not for him attempting. Like, he's not going to just being Sean Bean either.
Yeah.
And maybe that's part of our fault that we automatically associate him, and he's trying to branch out into different roles and not be stereotyped.
Yeah.
But he's just too big for the role that he's playing. And that's the only bit that makes you go, this isn't right.
Yeah.
But that's more on us than him. He's trying to diversify and not just be a one-note wonder.
Yeah, I think he's obviously working with what he's got, hasn't he? But there are some, a lot of big names in this film. Laurie Holden, that played Sybil Bennett. Obviously, she was in The Walking Dead early on. She's done quite a few major roles, but I think Sean Bean is, like I say, I think he's too big for this project. I wouldn't say he was better than the project.
No, it's not. Once again, it's just he's so. You have so many, when he appears, you have so many expectations of a certain character. It'd be like if Samuel L. Jackson had played Chris, it'd be the same effect, or someone like that. You'd just be like, huh?
Yeah,
this doesn't fit. It's certain actors you expect a certain thing. Like if Hugh Jackman had turned up and he was playing Chris, same again.
Yeah.
You'd have just been going, huh? It's
Yeah.
not right. It's not fitting here. But no, everyone here commits to their roles. Even the
Yeah.
child actors, like that's another thing as well. Like normally, child actors are insufferable.
Yeah.
But the
He
young
plays,
girl that plays
she plays a
Tara
really
and
good part.
really, really good, and Alyssa, and then the other entity, fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. So talented, especially like because they did a lot of practical effects in this, and for her to be so calm and collected when doing her stuff, and you know, she did really well. And like I say, I think everyone played their parts as well as they could. But I did like the inclusion of Christabella in the film.
I think because the theme of the movie is mother is God in the eyes of her child.
Yeah,
They wanted that to carry on through, so
yeah,
it made sense for this movie. They didn't want to dilute that theme.
yeah. And I think that's probably the main reason why they chose to have female lead rather than Harry. So that again fits in. I love it when she says "mother is God" in the eyes of a child.
Once again, back to why everything now is gender swap just to go up yours,
Yeah,
sort of thing. I didn't feel that with this, oh, used it until 2016, blah blah blah. It's like fuck,
yeah,
this has been done multiple times, but if it's done for the right reason and
yeah,
thematically, and it's not just a carbon copy of the story, it's an adaptation, and it does once again, it's all about the intention, isn't it?
yeah. And I think you can interpret anything in different ways, and I think it's quite refreshing to have a sort of different gender for that role, especially with the themes of mother and protection and everything. I think it fits really well. You
Because
know,
it's different. A father has a different relationship to a daughter, protects him in a different way. Mother, daughter, father, son. These relationships they're unique.
yeah,
Not, there's a particular way in which we interact with each other as a human species, and for some reason, everyone wants to just turn it up on its head today, just for the sake of doing it, just to go up yours. And the intention there, and then the intention comes across in the property, and then that's why people are being turned off because it's not right.
yeah,
The intention of this is once again to tell a compelling story, to have a particular theme in it, and bring that theme out.
yeah. And I think it does it really well.
And I don't recall any one person, any magazine article or anybody saying you gender swap meh, 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 because it wasn't done for that reason, and that's
I think that's the difference. I
the
think
importance, isn't it?
sometimes they change genders now to sort of please people, but I think with
It's more
this,
done now out of nastiness. It's out of, let's be
yeah,
honest, it's pure nastiness, and it's to get a reaction, and it's that whole cry bully sort of, well, the minute you mention it, we're going to call you this, that, and the other,
yeah,
and it's because they've made a shit product,
yeah,
because they don't care. They're civil, like the entertainment industry is the equivalent of civil service now. They think they're owed the money just for existing. It's always going to come in. They don't have to work. Think of the work that Christoph Gans had to put in just to get permission to
yeah,
adapt this movie. Like he's almost went and he almost had the offer of thumb. He's almost going. He was because Japanese culture is very ritualistic, even in the workplace, even in modern society. There's still very much of show respect, approach it a certain way, don't approach it in an arrogant way. He played that game
yeah,
because he genuinely wanted to make this movie.
yeah,
And I feel that when I'm watching this, and I
yeah.
appreciate it.
You can tell he wanted to create a story that was unique as well as familiar for people. Because even when I'm watching it, and it's Rose and Sharon, in my head, I can still take the similarities between Harry and Cheryl.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's nice. And it's just like a refreshing take on it. I think if we would have seen Harry, like, that's been done. Let's do something.
Yeah. That's, I mean, it's not just we're not just taking the exact game and you know what I mean? Because what's the point of adaptation then?
Yeah,
You
exactly.
want something slightly different. You just don't want all the cutscenes put together and played.
Yeah.
You could do that.
And it's his interpretation of it as well, which I like.
And it didn't detract from the story. It added to it. And yeah, like I said, just he didn't understand as a fan how to translate it to non-fans. I think that's his only feeling with this.
Yeah.
But hey ho, I can personally, that's why we have these conversations. So if somebody's maybe thinking about watching Silent Hill and you're not too sure, I hope we've helped you.
Yeah.
You know, that's why we have these conversations now, so that if somebody happens to come across this and go, well, I'm not too sure about that movie, it confused me, first of all. Well, here you go. We're explaining why, and hopefully you get an appreciation for it.
Definitely, yeah.
But yeah, I like the fact that Rose is being led. Like, it's almost like the calling has changed, where Sarah was being called initially, now it's calling the Rose.
Yeah.
And we now start getting the backstory of basically, because Alyssa was born out of wedlock, this cult decided, oh, we burn the witch, because that's what we do in the 21st century.
Yeah.
Or though this is set in like 20th century, but still modern times.
Yeah. And I think at that flashback when, she's at the school and she's being bullied and Christabella turns round to Dahlia and says, you just named the father. I think at that moment, you feel so empathetic towards Dahlia now, whereas at first sight, she is quite a scary looking character.
Nice sort of Scarlet Letter theme to it.
And I think at that
moment, was her, if I remember rightly, she wouldn't name, she committed adultery, but she wouldn't name was that right? That's why she got put in trial. God, I haven't read that in years.
I can't remember.
I think it's similar to I could be wrong, but I think it's very similar to the storyline of the Scarlet Letter.
And I think that's a powerful flashback scene, and it's done really well. And it's like, after that scene, sort of, I feel everything falls into place. Because that's the scene where they see, obviously, the burning. And then that's the scene that we discover why his hands were
he wears the gloves because
I think on the build up to this, obviously it sort of explains about everything, and it's
not the full reveal. Don't forget, this is like the first flashback where things start. We don't get the full reveal until the elevator scene.
On, I think it is definitely a powerful scene when you realize what Dahlia's gone through. I do like that scene.
And yet they're still living together, and you're starting to realize something's happened here. You're starting, all the bits are sort of coming together. But it's the scene in the elevator. Basically, this is where she memorizes the other map that basically go down into the basement, and very reminiscent of the sort of hospital scene, isn't it, in Resident Evil 1? Yeah, that's basically where we're going. And it's the locket. Oh, I took this off you because we're still scavengers, and it's when the locket flips open.
It's revealed.
Yeah, it's like, oh, right, these two are connected. Oh, and yeah, that's where Bennett makes the heroic sacrifice, and you're like,
yeah,
she took a beating. Oh my god, that was, once again, you wouldn't see that today with the girl boss.
Yeah,
but Bennett taking that beating and actually going down, like, at the end of the day, she's one person, doesn't have her gun, and they've all got pipes, and they're all motive. You're not going to win.
No.
So that was 100% realistic. And this is a question I have, because this is why they think they're doing this. They think they're doing a good thing with the girl boss character, but they're not. They're just being obnoxious. Did you lose any respect for Bennett,
No.
Sybil, when she's getting the absolute shit kicked out of her?
No. I think she stood her ground the whole
But
time.
she was going to get overpowered. It was inevitable. And the fact that they didn't hold back on her,
Yeah.
did
No,
that not endear you more to the character and have investment in her and
I think,
understand the
yeah,
sacrifice she made?
I was more invested in her. I say I love the character anyway, and
Mhm.
even in her later scene, she was still standing up for what she believed in and what she thought was right. Again, that was helped with the flashback scenes from earlier, humanizing that character even more, fleshing the character out.
Yep.
But that scene where she takes, a few hits,
It wasn't even, she was beaten with iron bars. Like she was,
yeah,
like she proper got the melt knocked out of her, and you felt it. Like it didn't shy away from it. Where today that would not. Like, do you remember? What was it? One of them dopey superhero movies. What's her face was held up by the neck by one of them, and everyone lost their shit.
oh,
Fucking
Captain
what's
Marvel or something.
the first action hero ever? Jennifer Lawrence. That's right. Her character she played, the blue one. Mystique.
Oh, I call X-Men.
Yeah, so she was getting held up in the poster by the neck by Apocalypse. That's right, and everyone lost their shit. Blah, 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 and all that. No, and you're like, where's the sense of threat then? You
Yeah,
idiots. This is storytelling. This is, if in this case Sybil was in no danger whatsoever or sacrificed, the fact they're doing that and she knew she was in personal danger, would not have had the impact. But the fact we see her getting beaten by the cult members, that they're not even going to just tear up politely. They're going to kick, because they denied her, got in their way. They took their rage out on her.
yeah,
Like, that was an impactful scene. And all it did was make you sympathize and empathize more with the character.
definitely.
And it wasn't the end. I mean, we've got another scene with Sybil, but bloody hell, like, this is how you make people emotionally invested. And
Yeah,
this is what the horror genre does, and the horror genre should never apologize.
no, definitely. And I think that scene's also shows the power that Christabella has over the cult members, because she literally made one small head movement to continue the beatings.
Yes.
She's got such a hold over this cult; they'll literally do anything that she says. Meanwhile, poor Rose is in an out of control elevator traveling at 100 miles per hour. I think that transition of scenes from Sybil having the beats to Rose in the elevator, the way it sort of flits between the two is really good.
Yeah, and that's, once again, it's today that would not be allowed to happen.
No.
And you're like, why? And they call it misogyny, that sort of crap. And it's like, no, hold on, man. Is Sybil as a character not allowed to make a heroic sacrifice? Is she not allowed to put herself in harm's way for what she believes in and actually show it by coming to physical harm?
Yeah.
Is that not allowed to make her character stronger? Like, that's how she is so not a girl boss. Like, the girl boss is an obnoxious creature. Here's another example of an actual legitimate strong female character.
Yeah, definitely.
Who, I'm sorry, I sort of see as a hero.
Yeah.
I know that's illegal today, but
But
we've already been way ahead of the curve before these idiots in Normie.
She definitely has those hero qualities.
Yeah. Even her bloody mindedness at the start was done for the right reason.
Yeah.
And then when she got new information, she changed her mind. You know what I mean? Great character. I loved her.
Yeah, she is a good character.
And yeah, it just shows again the horror genre's always been ahead of the curve with this crap, where other genres do it ham-fisted and they do it in such a horrible way that it actually has the opposite effect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here you go.
I know.
Sorry, I just can't help poking at today's sad attempts at filmmaking, because this reminds me of how good we had it, and I think we were kind of spoiled. I think growing up that we had such great stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll watch it all go to rat shit now, and I feel sorry for people younger generation that know nothing else apart from the shit being put out today.
And I think I find horror movies now are sort of churned out too quickly because people think they're an easy thing to do or an easy thing to just sort of make a quick.
I'll just make horror movies till I really make it, till I do my
Yeah.
real job.
But
Yeah.
I think with projects like this, you don't. It just shows you don't need a big budget to make something really good, or something interesting. You know, the he was willing to take risks, like you say, with maybe doing things that today wouldn't be acceptable, but it sort of paid off because it made you feel more sort of sympathy, empathy for the characters, and I think that's really important. And it's again, like we were saying, it wasn't done just because; it was done for sort of like a reason. And I think that's important too, because I think if you do something just because, I think it sort of loses some depth.
Gratuitous violence is boring.
Yeah,
that's why I don't like torture porn. That's my worst genre of horror. I think it's crass.
Yeah.
It's low rent, just churned out.
Yeah,
gimmicky. So I don't cover it. I don't get excited. Saw 29's out now, or the Hostel 50, whatever. I don't care. It's boring.
Yeah. It's a different type of yes, I can see what you're saying. It's I think with this it's more crafted, and it comes to that point where actually when Sybil is being beaten half to death, you've already built up that connection with her and you feel quite protective over her at that point.
Yeah.
And I think that's very clever the way it's been crafted like that.
And like you said, which I missed actually, but the nod in the head, they'd already brought her down, but when Christabella goes, yep,
do it
carry
more.
on.
Yeah.
Powerful, But this is where we get the sort of, and this really does feel like a video game when Rose is in the corridor and the nurses. I had to look that up, the behind the scenes of the show. That had to be a dance troupe.
They were very choreographed, very well.
I don't think that was CGI. I know there was CGI involved, but I think that was had to be a dance troupe.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, to be honest, but I do love the nurses, and nurses have always played a big part in Silent Hill, right from the first game. The sexy nurse, however, wasn't actually in the first game. So sexy.
No, because it was a hospital scene, wasn't it? And it was just like, yeah.
In the first game, nurses were like nurses. The sexy nurses didn't come actually until Silent Hill 2. And then they progressively got more sexy as they went on. Until they realized that actually it's probably not what people want from a Silent Hill game. But
is that where it sort of goes, oh, we want to make posters and keychains and stuff and want to cosplay?
Yeah, and I think the game Silent Hill Homecoming was basically directly inspired by this film, and you can tell by the way that they tried to make the nurses even sexier in that one. But I do like the nurse enemy, sort of they're such an interesting character, the way they're drawn to light, the way they move, the way they twitch, really clever how they put that into the movie as well.
Yeah, it was I'll not put the sound on just so I don't get pinged. It was a dance trip, or make us full screen. Is that showing up? Right. I suppose that's what we're going to get. Yep. Yeah, so it was. They actually had actresses do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. That's, once again, they use the CGI just as an extra storytelling device, but they use practical effects and they use people.
Yeah. And I think that definitely helps in that scene. And the way they move, it's so sort of unnerving. It's not natural the way they move. And I think, again, by that point, you know that Rose is in some really deep water.
But when she gets through that, and actually the bit where she triggers something and they all start slicing each other, they didn't care about it to each other or that.
No.
It was put there. And this is all a test
Yeah.
so that Rose can meet Alyssa.
Yeah. Because, when she runs from the nurses, she runs into the room with the so-called demon, and the screen goes bright white, and I always have to squint at it, which is quite a clever technique, actually, because you've gone from this dark thing to this bright white light, and it does make the viewer squint at the screen if you're watching it.
Yeah, but once again, it's intentional. You're in this world. You're sort of going along. This is the use of filmography, camera work to tell the story, to show without telling.
And this is the part with sort of the final flashback.
Yeah, the full reveal.
Of the sacrifice of Alessa that went wrong. The way she was burning to death, basically. Again, it's such a powerful flashback scene. And
you can tell this cult was like they were ostracizing her, they were bullying her in school, was all.
Yeah.
But they were working themselves up.
Yeah.
To carry out the sacrifice at a certain time. They do this, and they've been doing this for years. People have been coming into the town. It's something they do on a regular basis. This time they just needed a local, and it was Alyssa's turn because somebody else hadn't come in, and they're just looking for that excuse to do it.
I don't like cults. I do. I love that scene, and it's sort of at that point you sort of realize, mate, like Alessa's not the villain, and then you realize why this whole fire started, and I think a lot falls into place at that scene, and then obviously it sort of goes into what's happening. With Rose stood there with the nurse and the sort of bed in the other world, with the dark side of Alessa sort of revealing herself.
There was so the dark side of Alessa is actually in the bed.
The dark side of Alessa is the girl.
But the demon's another entity, isn't it?
So
the demon approached Alessa, and when this is where we get. There's actually another character, and this is brilliant.
So Alessa's on the bed, obviously.
Yes.
The dark side of Alessa's the one walking around with the makeup, and then Sharon is the light side of Alessa. So together they make up one. But I like that scene because then, like you say, it adds an extra sort of character.
But is this bit which goes, "Who are you? I go by many names."
Yeah.
So no, it's not the dark side of Alessa, the one still in the bed clinging on to her pain. No, this is actually a demon that basically approached Alessa.
I think
after she was in the hospital to give her
the soul's been split, hasn't it?
Yeah, but that's the two halves. There's actually the demon is a separate entity.
Yeah.
That gave Alessa the power to do that, and then that was her, request that she could split a good part of herself, and that's Sarah that then got adopted.
Yeah, and that's the whole sort of that's why they sent Sharon away to the orphanage then.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, again, it all fits in with these flashbacks that we're having. It's really good. And I like the
back to the outside world with the detective. They never found the bodies after that fire. A lot of bodies disappeared, so it turns out they died and they were taken into Silent Hill world.
Yeah, they were taken into this other sort of dimension. I would have liked more time with the nurse because
the one that peeked into the
because I don't know if it actually says her name in the film, but I'm assuming it's Lisa Garland from the first game.
Mm-hmm.
the nurse from the first game, and she plays quite a big part in the game. And I would have liked to have spent more time with that nurse to sort of see
I
what's
think we were kind of running out of time here at this point because we've
yeah, we're getting on for the nearly 2 hours now.
no, what I meant on in movie time. I mean,
Yeah,
we spent quite a bit of time, movie time, going through the
yeah,
atmosphere, bringing everybody into the world. I think to start doing exposition now on every character would have been
a bit too much, I suppose.
I would have got too over. This is something we would have done today. They'd have spent an extra 10 minutes because people don't know how to edit.
Yeah.
So they'd have spent another 10 minutes in her character. And then I think the pace of the plot would have been derailed.
Yeah. I think because it's a long film, like I said, it goes on for, well, we say it goes on for 2 hours, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
But they've managed to put so much into it. But I suppose it's a good thing that it leaves the person wanting more. So it makes people want to revisit it. And, like we're doing now, we're doing talks and discussions, and there's countless different videos out there who sort of has their own perspectives on it. I think it would be a very long film, I suppose, if we had to flesh out all the characters.
But the pacing, that's what I mean. It would disrupt the pacing.
Yeah.
This is coming up to the third, basically the final act. This is where everything escalates to stop with it. Now, I think they gave enough of a hint. Once again, for a normie, somebody not a fan of Silent Hill, that I think that was enough. That she just was curious. She got caught because Alyssa had been given the power by this demon. So she's just a tragic, almost like a fallout, collateral damage.
I suppose that's like a little Easter egg for the fans then.
Yeah.
Lisa Garland is in this, but I like that scene. And then obviously when the child hugs Rose and then sort of turns into one person then. So like she's inside Rose now, isn't she?
I love the way I love Rose's interaction. Because the temptation here would be, oh, you're deep. No, she has full understanding.
Yeah.
And she is prepared to play her part. Now, yes, she wants Sarah back, but also she's met Alyssa. She's seen Alyssa's backstory. She understands what this cult is about. And the frustration with the demon is she can't get them because they protected themselves in the church. They managed to set themselves up an island, so their punishment hasn't been able to go on.
Yeah, they've managed to do this barrier, haven't they? Where it's not. Yeah.
It's almost like a vampire not being able, can't get invited in or can't go into consult. You know what I mean? They've managed to seal themselves off. Yes, they go out and forage, and they're limited. And I like the fact that there's limitations.
Yeah.
There's only bursts of power or so much strength. And we see Alyssa isn't, because she's only half a person, like she doesn't have full strength, so she can only channel the entity so much. Hence the sirens and the bursts and that, and we realize it's all part of the like a psychological warfare as well. On well, not survivors that died, but their souls have been trapped.
Yeah. I agree with that, and I was like, I like the fact that they couldn't just walk into their sort of sanctuary, their sort of safe space, and I quite liked the idea of that, and I think it was clever how they thought of ways to get around that.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously Rose had been inside the church before, so I think that was very clever and something different.
Yeah, and then the calling, they maybe thought that Sarah could have done it, hence the calling out.
Yeah.
But it then became Rose's preferred. Once again, mother's love. Mother is God in the eyes of a child. The whole theme. I will offer myself freely. As you carry out your mission.
Yeah, I think that's good. And it's also with the sort of merging of the two characters. Obviously, she's inside Rose. That's also, again, I think, quite motherhood-like because she's got a child inside of her again. So it's sort of like it's very sort of everything's like motherhood, isn't it? It's like you can bring anything back to that.
We never touched on why Rose adopted.
Yeah.
And I don't think it needed it. It could be hinted at. There could be reasons, blah blah blah. But
Yeah.
it's not the point. It's the emotion, the connection. That's
Yeah.
what's the strength here. And yeah, Rose uses that connection with the entity who's had many names, so
Yeah.
it can carry out its revenge.
And I think Rose does, even though Rose isn't biologically the mother to Sharon, like it is her mother, and mother is God.
Yeah,
You know,
it's a connection. It's the the deeper thing that can't be quantifiable. It either exists or it doesn't, and this is the powerful force.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and then we find out Colin's backstory, and oh my god, what a then I originally felt sympathy for him. No, that's like, do you know what? Okay, get more some barbed wire around you, you dirty bastard.
So again, I think that was done in quite a sort of clever way, because it wasn't actually shown, but it was insinuated by the way the cutscene played out.
Yeah.
Because even though nothing was shown, you already could see by the facial how scared she was and how menacing he looked. You could tell that something not good has been going on.
Yep. And if she's pariah basically in the village or the town, she's not going to be believed.
No.
And basically a predator is always looking for an opportunity, and it presented itself.
Yeah.
So and this thing is not afraid of it's not afraid of, as we say, violence and being visceral. So this is where it could have been gratuitous, but it wasn't. It's clever storytelling. You didn't need to, you know
exactly what was insinuated. And then, like you said, instantly you think back to the monster that he became, and then actually deserved what he got.
Yep, and that's his punishment. He doesn't get to die. He has and it seems to be that everyone gets killed, and this becomes part of the tool, becomes a tool, so that they don't get released. Even in the afterlife, their soul doesn't get released. Their soul gets consumed and then repurposed and used.
And they're just tormented over and over again.
Yep, and that's the ultimate punishment.
Yeah, definitely. And quite fitting, in my opinion.
Yep. Oh, without a doubt. If only that was an option today.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we get the crux of the matter is dealing with this cult. So this cult has managed to, which is what they do in their mindset, is even when realities face them that they're not alive, they still manage to cling on to, they still exist, they're still doing the right thing, they still think they're alive in the real world, and it's a fire, they're out scavenging, but whatever's coming through, they don't understand that they've already crossed, and they're denying reality.
Yeah. I think, that whole cult thing, it's just, I think they all played it so good, and I think the power Christabella had over them, even in the final scenes where she thinks, oh God, I've messed up here, she's managed to sway them again.
We'll also find out as well, Sarah is actually still hiding. She hasn't been, they're still searching for her.
Yeah, which they do find her then, don't they?
Because they didn't know they were looking for her, because it was the reveal of the locket, realized that Sarah is now here, and that's basically they're going to go and finish what they started.
Yeah.
And even that scene, like being that wee kid playing that, they've got the suits on. I know it's acting, but still, doors are smashed in, they're coming through, they've got weapons, there's noise. Like the way she played that scene was fantastic.
Yeah, she did really well, and I think she must have been terrified.
Yeah, because that would, yes, it's only make boom, smash, and they're like kicking things and all, and like proper in a frenzied search.
Yeah,
that would be that would make anybody just
Yeah, it was quite horrific, but they sort of find her, because Dahlia started looking for her, and she found her then, didn't she? And they were sort of like all following each other, because she was like, the child is mine. because obviously it has the likeness of her daughter. Yeah, and then they capture her, then don't they, and take her to the church.
Yep, where they're going to basically do the ritual again. I have to say, once again, if you haven't felt sympathy for Bennett at this point, God, like, it's not over for
her. Poor woman.
Yeah. And that was very realistic as well. Because rather than having her tied to the stake, actually using the ladder and having her over the flame, because if you've ever put your hand above a fire, it rises and the God, that was almost simple but effective.
Yeah, and I think you can almost feel how hot she is. By first of all, like, not much is happening, but then the skin's sort of starting to burn, and you can. It's quite realistic the way it was done, and it was done obviously with like CG and probably a mix of CG and practical, but it looked so real the way it was burning. And then when the flames took hold, it was like literally, so not even our hero is safe in Silent Hill. But yeah, they all watched on as she burnt to death.
Yeah.
Which to me, these cults exist in real life, and they have done for years and years. And it sort of baffles me that people can be under some sort of brainwashing to believe it.
Have you been around the last 5 years?
I try not
how
to.
easy it is for people to be brainwashed,
I know.
just by wanting to be in the right social media crowd.
Yeah, I try not to.
I went to a marketing event. When was that? About 2 months ago. And it was one of them. I knew there was a scam, but I wanted to see it firsthand because I heard about these things, the sort of entrepreneurs, the Ponzi scheme where you buy into selling courses.
Yeah.
Right. And, increase your social media. So I watched people there. I watched their eyes glaze over. And this was done in almost a religious. I did a video about it. Raise your hand if you want to make more money. Raise your hand. Whoa, opportunities at the back of the room. And they're busy prime. You go to the back of the room, sign up. It was beautiful to watch and disgusting at the same time.
Yeah.
It wasn't the fact that they were doing the techniques, could being primed as well. But even if you weren't, you sort of know something's not right. But I was legit watching people like sitting beside me. Oh, I wish I had the money now. And I'm just sort of going, are we in the same room?
Yeah.
And never, that's one of the reasons why I wrote my book of poetry, Surviving the Herd. Never underestimate the power of the mob.
No.
We are a herd-like animal. Some of us are more wolf-like, some of us are lone wolves, but, well, we're all social creatures, but never underestimate how dangerous the herd is. When they get something in their mind, and they always need to be told, and it doesn't matter, we saw it in the Satanic Panic, we saw it through the woke stuff, it'll come again in some other shape or form. We saw it in the, go right back to medieval times, go back to the Inquisition, blah, 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 blah. It's always raises its head. When people get scared or they get pointed in the right direction, they always want to know where the threat is. It's part of your brain to look for danger. And everyone wants to know who the enemy is, who the other is, and there's always somebody there willing to manipulate you and point you in that direction.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to get caught up in that frenzy. Like, I always step back, I try to anyway. I'm not infallible, you know what I mean? I can be as susceptible as anybody else, but I always make an effort, conscious of it, to step back and not get into that.
Yeah, I'm a bit like that, to be honest.
Because you're a horror fan. Oh, you kill puppies. Get the horror fan. If you've ever been in, I've talked to this with a few people. If you've been in online courses, for example, and you're the only horror creator in the group, have you seen the dynamics, the way it changes?
Yeah, I've experienced that in real life as well.
Yeah, you like horror, and that's and it was worse in the 80s. For example, during the Satanic Panic, it was horrible. Yeah, we didn't go full dumb Yankistan, but we still got the tail end of it, and we're still here.
Yeah.
you saw it happening, and you see people change. You see one person who might have been reasonable, but when certain things click into place, like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, you know, what I mean, you actually see people go like that. So
Yeah,
I see this cult. This is 100% possible and still happening. We're
yeah.
not past this.
No, the scary part of it, isn't it?
And what's the function of horror? To warn people. Horror
Yeah,
is a warning. All horror stories have been warnings. Don't do this.
yeah,
And here we go. Yeah, it's taken to the extreme of you actually do summon a demon, and guess what? You're about to get your world rocked even in the afterlife.
yeah,
But yeah, this is the cult. They want they want power, and they want the kill. They want they don't understand fully. They know they're not in a good place. They know they're terrified because the siren keeps going. This is happening throughout the day. Doesn't
yeah,
matter whether it's day or night. They have to go out and forage for supplies. They can't just, so they know they're still thinking like living people.
yeah. That's it. And they're sort of like haven't caught up to the modern times because obviously they're stuck. They're stuck in that sort of mindset that they was.
At one period of history, even though people
Yeah,
have moved on and grown up, and
yeah. So I think that's I think it's quite an important part of it, to be honest, because like we say, it is still happening. And I think obviously this is to the extreme, but I think it does put sort of a highlight on it that these things have happened and are happening. You know, with like cults and schemes and brainwashing and that. Obviously, you know, I would say this is unusual, but I'm sure there's cults out there that actually do things like this, which is quite sad.
yeah, there's been don't forget, we know the stuff that gets reported.
Yeah,
What's happening out there throughout history. One thing actually back home were the what do you call it? The bogmen, they were known as. So basically, in Ireland, you can cut peat turf, and that's a source of fuel. And what was happening? People were cutting, cutting it out. What they do is they cut it into like briquettes, they leave it out to dry, and it's used as a fuel. But they got so far they were finding bodies, and
okay.
they were finding these bodies like all through different times, but they weren't just trapped; hands were bound, and then because the peat preserved the bodies,
Yeah.
they were seeing the slices across the throat and stuff. So basically, they
So,
weren't just murders; it was they were sacrifices, basically.
yeah,
And that was God. When was that? Was the 20th century? You know what I mean? That was the first started popping up. Literally,
yeah,
oh right, it's a body. Get the police around, and it turned out it's 200 years old.
yeah,
Perfectly preserved. It was a human sacrifice. It's always happened. It always will happen.
yeah,
The stuff that we don't know that's going on, how many on disappearances, unsolved murders, blah 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 blah, are going on in the world as we speak.
that's a scary thought.
Yes, but once again, horror explores that. That's the beauty of the horror genre.
It does. It sort of ask questions that people are maybe too scared to ask.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Silent Hill's a prime example of that, you know.
And it actually takes a supernatural story back to a very real one. Yeah, if you're going to church every Sunday and they're telling you to randomly burn bodies, you're not in a good place. Maybe don't do that.
Yeah,
Or if things start going, a bit too wibbly, have that sense of, don't be a zealot. That's what the message of this. If there's any sort of messaging in this movie, it's don't be a zealot because it's not good. And if you're the sort that lets people pull your strings,
yeah,
be careful who you let do it.
yeah, that's it. But yeah,
Talk about glorious revenge. Like, Rose comes into the church, she basically challenges, and I love the way that just like the equivalent of a theological discussion. Christabella's answer is, "Well, I'm going to stab you now." Doof. I've had enough of this.
I love. In my notes, I wrote about the scene with the dagger, and I love the bit when the first drop of blood hits the floor, and the way the music sort of there's like one bass cymbal and it's like it spreads out the blood. I absolutely love that. But then that's the point where Christabella stabs her and thinks, oh crap, I've done something that I won't about to explain, but she easily captivates them all again to say that she's done the right thing. But I love the bit when the blood hits the ground, and then obviously the darkness has come in.
Yeah, and then this is where it's more reminiscent of Resident Evil 2. I think of the hospital scene with the wheelchair, except it's a hospital bed with the sort of taking a bit of a inspiration from that. But
yeah, I love the bit when Alessa's rising up on the bed with the barbed wire, isn't it? And it's just chaos. It's this wires flying everywhere, but it's not hurting the people that's important, which is obviously the mothers.
Yes. Because once again, Alessa's mother looks up at her and she's like, I'm so sorry, you know, and just she's actually ready to die.
Yeah.
In penance.
Yeah. And I think that's quite emotional, in a way, because she's like, why doesn't she hurt me? Why doesn't she kill me? And then that's when the line, mother is God in the eyes of a child, comes in. And I think that's quite, it's a lot to think about. I think that's what this film does well, is after it's finished, you got a lot to think about. Similarly with the games as well. I think there's a lot of deeper meaning, deeper messages, quite good conversation topics as well.
Yeah, and also everyone has individual experiences, and this is what I love about good storytelling and not preaching.
Yeah.
Each of us can bring our own, you know, our own experiences, and then maybe imprint part of that onto the story. We're allowed to, and we're given room to do that. And we can get our own meaning, and we can both enjoy it, but for different reasons.
Definitely.
And I miss that level of storytelling.
Yeah.
I do miss it.
Yeah, I think it's a great story. It's well, everything that we've said in this you know, this stream, it's not gory for gore's sake. Everything has a reason. Everything's done at just the right pace. It sort of sums up the whole thing. It's a beautiful film. Camera angles, music. You know, it's like such a big machine with all different cogs moving around, and I think they all do work in tandem with each other, which is why I think people are more willing to forgive some of the sort of, not mistakes, but some of the
limitations of the
effects. I think because everything's working in such a way, people are easy to look over things, because again, it all comes back down to, this is a fan wanting to show what he loves. And you can feel that connection all the way through, right to the very end scene, you know?
Yeah, which turns out that they think they're getting out, but because we've been primed, the fact they're still in the fog, we know they haven't.
No, they're still there.
And their reality's almost been warped, because they should know, but they have almost been captured. You know, they've become part of the curse, but they do drive home. And even the scene with Chris, like, he doesn't even sleep in the bed. Like, he's distraught. That was a nice scene.
Yeah, that sort of, that humanized him more, because you could tell he wasn't sleeping right.
Yeah.
He was worried. You could see the worry. But then when the camera flips back, and, you know, Rose walks into the house, but it's still shrouded in this fog, but she doesn't realize that she's in the fog. It's sort of just...
Or was there an element of accepting her fate?
Possibly. I know the second film sort of undoes a lot of everything throughout this film, and it wasn't really successful. But this first film, I think the questions don't need to be answered at the end for certain things. I think it's nice to let it be what it wants to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really passionate about this whole franchise. It's you know, and I
No, I
think
can understand why, because it's once again it's a different, it's under survival horror, it's video game adaptation, but it's a different feel. You're
yeah,
getting a different experience from playing the games and from watching the movie. It's
definitely,
You're not expected to get the Resident Evil feel because that's a different vibe.
yeah,
You're not expected to get Doom or I need to look at other we'll need to start looking at other horror game
horror
adaptations
games, like,
because I know they've done a lot of video game adaptation, more of mainstream stuff.
yeah,
Well, I'll need to see what else they've done and get a list, and maybe that could be something we could look at.
yeah,
How well they've done, how badly they've done. There's 3 sequels. There's 3 films in there.
yeah. Wow, there will be. So we had this one, obviously 2006. We had
Silent
Silent
Hill 2, which
Hill
I think we should look at it. To be honest, now thinking about it, I haven't seen that yet.
2012. That one came out,
Mm.
and then we have got Return to Silent Hill, which is currently being made now. I thought it was going to be out this year, but it's not
I
looking
think
like.
all the strikes and stuff, everything's been put back.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm looking forward to another film. The second film, Silent Hill Revelations, didn't do very well. I enjoyed it for what it was, and I think that's the key thing. Is it's like I said at the start, you can't really canonize it into it's like its own thing. But I enjoy it for what it is. But the first film definitely is special.
Yep. The just the storytelling alone, and I've said this, like you touched on it there. You'll find yourself forgiving if the storytelling's there, the characters are there, and the intent
Yeah,
of somebody wanting to entertain you there. You have those 3 elements, and it doesn't matter about the cast, the special effects, the budget, blah 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 blah. All that is icing on the cake, good or bad. And
yeah,
if some of it falls short, you will allow more. When you don't have those first 3 elements of a movie or a book or whatever else, then you nitpick. Because
yeah,
if you're not enjoying yourself, you feel like you're being taken for a ride or you're being disrespected as a fan, then you start picking at everything else.
yeah,
And we've seen that hundreds of times when they've done it badly. Get those 3 elements, and they're the cheapest elements, aren't they?
yeah.
Like
I
they're the
think,
bits that really don't cost money.
yeah,
It's time and effort. It's putting your thoughts onto the script, the storyboarding. That's the bit that's up to you. An effort. The characterization, once again, that's up to the storytelling. The intent, that's something you have to have in you.
yeah,
You either
definitely.
have it or you don't.
And it's the passion, and you can feel the passion in this film.
Yeah, well, there you go. I'm glad we revisited this. Actually, I forgot how good, and actually, I don't think the first time I ever watched it, I don't think I got the depth that I
Yeah,
did watching it now. Like, there's loads of bits I've missed out at the start. You just felt like you didn't get the full impact of the story. I was a lot younger then as well, but I'm glad I revisited this. I'm glad we talked about it. Yeah, and I'm glad that we're able to talk about Silent Hill as a franchise and why it's its own thing and has its own flavor and why that's okay. Not
definitely.
everything has to be beige and homogenized.
No, that's it. I think I'm glad the opportunity's come up to speak about it, because it seems like every time I watch this film, I love it even more.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I can see that.
and it's the same with the games. Every time I play the games, I find something new or I discover something. That's why there's endless videos explaining different elements of the lore and what's going on in Silent Hill. But the film is special to me, and it's one that I do watch quite regular. It's like I say, it's my comfort film. I mentioned at the start, and like if I'm just lounging around, I'll just put Silent Hill on just in the background sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
because I think the story's fantastic, and I think a lot of things can be missed on watching it sort of 1 or 2 times. I think you really do need to concentrate on it, and being a fan of the series, I think it gives an extra level of depth as well, and you're able to sort of dive deeper into things. But similarly, like if you're a new viewer, I think you can really enjoy it as it is, even if this is your only contact with Silent Hill. And I think the unanswered questions do, you know,
It adds to the atmosphere, doesn't it?
Yeah, adds to the atmosphere. It's sort of like, this is what Silent Hill is. Silent Hill is a confusing place. Do we know what happens? Like, you know, it's sort of, you know, Silent Hill is a character basically, isn't it? It's like a character in its own right.
Character itself, it's a manifestation, you know,
Yeah.
rather than being a monster or something. It's actually the town, you know, it's given life. It's like the Amityville house.
Yeah.
You know, the house becomes a character in itself, or the house in the house series, the house becomes a character, you know, as much as an individual creature.
That's it. And I think it'd be interesting how the new game's going to play out, because Silent Hill F isn't actually in Silent Hill, so that'd be interesting. But that's for another video, I'm sure. But yeah, I'd recommend this film to any horror fan.
Yeah, and just come into it with expectations. It's not a popcorn flick.
No.
There is an expectation that you pay attention.
Definitely.
And you understand the atmosphere. It's not Resident Evil. It's a different experience. And just because once again, get out of this cookie cutter mentality of, even with slashers, you know, you watch one slasher doesn't mean it's going to be the same. You can have different levels. Black Christmas is completely different from Nightmare on Elm Street, completely different from Friday the 13th, completely different from Psycho.
Yeah, but
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Each one has its own experience. So that's what you do. It's the same with survival horror. You have different experiences and what's expected of, you know, what you're going to get from the gameplay and the movie. But yeah, thanks as always. Thanks for coming on, Matt. It was great to
I've really enjoyed it. Really
maybe
enjoyed
we'll have a look at the Silent Hill 2 at some stage, and
I'll definitely be up for that.
Cool. I like to revisit that one again because I haven't seen it in years either, and
there might be a reason for
with
it.
a fresher mind, you know, that yeah, it mightn't have done as well, but what were the reasons and what's the difference?
Yeah, definitely.
Between that and this one.
Yeah.
What went right, what went wrong?
100%.
All right, there you go, folks. Thanks for everyone for tuning in and for joining in chat. Always great to have you. And until next time, just as we say, keep up to date with the channel, do the type of clicky things, and remember to keep it creepy, keep it horrific.